So I wanted to film this about 2 weeks ago, but I've been really poorly. So here is my full 2024 wrap up. So in 2024, I read 327 books. It's a lot. I know it's a lot. No, I didn't skim them. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I don't have any other hobbies. I barely watch TV. I'm either working, reading, looking after my child, or editing videos on what I've read. So I only started reading in around January 2024. I started reading little bits of like Harry Potter books again because my mental health was starting to decline and I needed something just to escape, basically. So in January, I was introduced to things like, kind of went in at the deep end. So H.D. Carlton, I read Credence because at the time there were a few people that I saw online reading it and I was like, okay. Wasn't a huge fan. I then also tried a few different audiobooks. One I really enjoyed was called Stitched Up. It was an autobiography based on a doctor that worked in a prison and what he dealt with, who he came across, that sort of thing, and I found that really interesting. Audiobook wise, I was very much non-fiction for audiobooks at that point. I really struggled to read fiction or listen to fiction as audiobooks early on in my journey. February rolled around and I decided to try Kindle Unlimited just on my phone. I was reading a little bit more and I thought, hey, I'll save myself some money. Spoiler, I did not save myself some money. So in February, I discovered Freida McFadden, which is very much a lot of people's window into thriller books. I loved them, couldn't get enough of them. I think I read about 6 or 7 in just February alone of just her books. I was hooked. I also started to read more Harlan Coben because his Fool Me Once series had just come out on Netflix the month before, I think it was, and I was like, oh, it's a book, let me check it out. I now have so many Harlan Coben books. So then March rolls around. I carry on reading Freida McFadden, I read some Daniel Hurst, the Doctor's Wife series, which I adored, and also Lynda La Plante, who is a crime author that I actually used to enjoy years and years ago and hadn't read in a very long time. So I read her Above Suspicion, Anna Travis series, adored it, not all in March, but throughout March and April. I discovered Lisa Jewell, I read Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, and then I also decided to read ACOTAR. It was slightly peer pressure, but as much as looking back now, I didn't enjoy the first book that much, the fact it was entry level into fantasy for me, and fantasy is now my favourite genre, I am grateful for the book for that. So, April, I finished the ACOTAR series. I read A Court of Silver Flames, and then I jumped straight into Throne of Glass. And I read books 1 to 6 fully in April, back to back. I couldn't get enough of it. I absolutely adored it. I then started Anna Huang books, and I didn't enjoy them. I was very much still at that point of I need to finish books I've started. Like I didn't like the concept of DNFing books at this point, and I really wish I had. I also read Powerless, and that was kind of my first fantasy book that I read outside of SJM. We get to May, and I have already read 100 books by this point, which was more than I ever thought I would in the year. It's more than I'd read in the past 20 years combined, probably. I finished Kingdom of Ash, adored that series, it was incredible, and I went on a holiday. When I say I went on a holiday, I spent 4 days in a treehouse cabin by myself next to a river with a big stack of books. I would fully recommend it. I enjoyed every single minute of it. Whilst I was there, I read Fourth Wing, I read most of Iron Flame, Tattooist of Auschwitz, which was a new genre again for me to try, and I adored that book so much. I then also moved on to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, so then I started to kind of venture into YA a little bit more as well. I was very much interested in kind of expanding the genres that I read. And then I also tried Flawless, which is the first in the Elsie Silver books. Again, I didn't think it was going to be for me, just the fluffy type romance. When I heard cowboy romance, it took me a while to not think of the Milky Bar Kid. Just to add, it was in May that I then joined BookTok and started actually to create bookish content for myself. So June happens, my friend actually releases another one of her books, so Pole Position, I read, I loved it, I absolutely love it. I read Days at the Morisaki Bookshop, which again was another genre I didn't think I'd enjoy, but it was just so relaxing and so different to what I'd read before. I also read Cows. We're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. I also then started the Bargainer series, which is another one that I love and not many people kind of talk about, by Laura Thalassa. It is, I don't know whether people don't like it because the MMC is called Desmond, and whether that throws people, I don't know. But I really enjoy it. July, I read the entire Foils and Fury series, which is another one that I never see anyone talk about. And it was so much fun to read. I started Binding 13, the Chloe Walsh series. Again, it's one that I didn't think I would enjoy, but very, very emotional. And then I read Guild. The Plated Prisoner series is my Roman Empire. So far, it is at the peak of my fantasy journey, and I love it with my whole heart. So we get to August, and I realise that I have about 20 series that I've started and that I haven't finished. So I make a conscious effort from August onwards to try and finish series that I've already started. But then I also started Zodiac Academy, which I'm still working on now in January 2025, by the way. August was also the point where I then hit 200 books read in the year. Once I hit 200, I was like, right, I'll set my goal at 250. I increased my goal each time I'd hit it because I didn't know what area I was going to be at the end. So I thought set mini goals and do it that way. September, None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn, House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. I had such a good month with books in September. The Shepherd's King duology, The Knowing by Emma Hines, just so many books that were so different to what I was either currently reading or hadn't heard people talk about, and that was something that I really, really enjoyed. October, I get to the point where I've kind of finished most of the series that I have started. Most. I then read Legends and Lattes. For Halloween, I read Hidden Pictures. Goldfinch came out, which was the final book in the Plated Prisoner series, so I devoured that instantly. Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. Her Name in the Sky. Secret Society for Soulless Girls. November was my birthday month, and I got absolutely spoiled rotten by people on BookTok for my birthday, and I will forever be grateful, and there were numerous tears shed and lots of confusion over why it happened. But again, it was another month of books that I was reading for me, rather than what necessarily I might have seen or that was trending or whichever, and it did so much good for me. So you had in at the deep end, House of Hunger, The Invocations, Our Wives Under the Sea, Delilah Green Doesn't Care, Babel, Priory of the Orange Tree, Jade City. These were all in November. I had a hefty November. I had time off for my birthday. Priory and then Babel back to back gave me an insane headache, but I loved every second of them. And then December, I read the Alan Rickman Diaries, and the ending of that absolutely broke me. How You Lose the Time War. I started Crescent City finally, and I've actually really, really enjoyed it so far. I still have book 3 to read. Once Upon a Broken Heart series, I read all of that. I really, really enjoyed it. It was nice to kind of have a step away from spicy fantasy, because I'm not a big fan. If it's got its place, and some books it works, others it just doesn't, and it's not really for me. And yet, one of my favourite reads for December was Gillian Anderson's Want. I adored it. It made me think so much about things that you don't really think about why people have certain preferences over certain things. This is a short one. I'm going to try and do more on here. That for my first year of reading, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed a lot. My resolutions for 25 are, if you're not enjoying DNF, just DNF it. It doesn't matter. Finish series that I have still got to go, which is mainly Zodiac Academy. Review every book that I read. That's something I want to get into more. That's me. Okay, bye.